You're walking in the woods. There's no one around and your phone is dead. Out of the corner of your eye, you spot him.
Hello, my name is Graham. I run RPG Nook, online Discord channel, and we play online tabletop RPGs several times a week. And today I would like to talk to you about a scenario called Undertow. It is a modern day Call of Cthulhu scenario and can be found in Stygian Fox's Fear's Sharp Little Needles. This scenario itself is only 4 pages long, and it covers a topic which I thought mirrored quite well one of my favourite films, In the Mouth of Madness. The premise of Undertow is the release of a new horror novel by the infamous writer Justin Haynes, who has not produced a novel in several years, going through personal problems that ravaged his life, including depression and an incident with his ex-wife. His new book, however, has hit the bestsellers chart and has come to the attention of people with understanding of the mythos. And throughout, they can see the telltale signs of truths within its pages. The novel Undertow follows the story of Nikki Fisher, a young actress in Los Angeles who finds her life increasingly overwhelmed whilst others succeed around her. She tries various methods and remedies to keep herself afloat, but ends up joining a New Age cult. And it is here that the mantras and philosophies of the mythos are weaved through the stories. What's really going on here is Haynes' depression is being used and eaten away by a avatar of Nyarlathotep in the guise of a black dog. In exchange for this, Haynes is given new ideas and vigour to write about the mythos that Nyarlathotep whispers to him. These ideas come in the form of dreams that are encountered by Nikki Fisher within the novel and the rituals within the New Age cult. Reading the novel Undertow subjects you to Nyarlathotep's dreams of the ocean. The readers are drawn there through a peaceful, serene feeling that lets them embrace the sea air and the noise of the waves. So much so that they'll eventually find peace within the water, being dragged under through the currents and killed against the shores. And this is one of the sort of leading factors of this scenario. And that's where we start to see the cracks. And the premise and the setup of this is great. I thought Undertow was going to be one of my favourite scenarios of this book. But when it came down to actually implementing and putting it down as a game, it's quickly started to fall apart. There's just not a lot here to keep players' interest for more than 2, maybe 3 hours without extensive work by the GM to elaborate and expand on some of the themes, which are genuinely very good. There's a lot of fertile ground here to plant your own seeds, and if you're that type of GM, then this is a scenario for you. It lets you have a premise and a seed, and you can just run with it. Anyone who struggles with improv or expanding investigations on the fly will need to prep hard, and we'll need to do a huge amounts of work to invest in a scenario which is only a one-shot. You can make this excellent, but if you are flummoxed by people searching the internet, having phones to phone people up on the fly, having to elaborate Facebook and Twitter and all this sort of stuff to your players when they start to look for clues and where Haynes may be, they're going to struggle, and you're better off with another scenario. The first warning sign to me that this was fairly underdeveloped was the lackluster involvement of the investigators. The investigators are meant to be investigating due to the mythos link, which means they are in the know about the mythos and are already aware that bad shit is happening behind the curtain. Worried about the cult and the underlying rituals within the book, they go looking for Haynes, looking to talk to him about these subjects. This presents a little bit of an issue right off the bat, because they'll be clued into what to look for, and they'll already be paranoid around Haynes and looking at everything with suspicion. With a big black dog, no matter how friendly it is, bounding up to them in the opening of them finding Haynes' apartments on the beach, they're instantly going to call foul and suspect the dog. Everything in this scenario will be blown wide open, and there'll be no drama, there'll be no tension, there'll be no surprise, there'll be no reveal. So this is a bad opener and hook for the scenario. One of my biggest problems with this scenario is there's just no investigation whatsoever. You're given vague clues to how to find Haynes, who's gone into hiding, and he is known as a bit of a recluse. The two places you're meant to find the information is either his agent, who's in a nearby hotel to where he is staying on his beach house, and his ex-wife. How you're meant to get hold of her, I assume you're meant to drive to her house and confront her, or something similar. There's a lot of scope here to expand an investigation and look for Haynes in a manhunt as you race against the clock to maybe the next drowning of a fan or something similar. But you're going to have to make it all up yourself, and I think this is a grave mistake of the scenario to miss out this almost whole first act if you want to go on a 3-act structure. So you're going to have to come up with fan pages, Twitters, paparazzi, lookalike, celebrity shots, or landmarks in like the photos where you could probably narrow down the search. And this is what I did with my players. I got about maybe an hour out of it before they honed in to Haynes, and it was something I should have planned more thoroughly, and if I should do it again, I would certainly do that. Another way to open the scenario is to investigate the drownings of several victims that are linked only by the fact that they're all fans of Haynes, having books lying around of his little novel, Undertow. This is how I would play the investigation if I were to play it again. This leads to finding him through an alternative mean which is more natural. It doesn't require mythos knowledge. It doesn't require Haynes to be in the picture at all or on the player's radars. The black dog and the depression is not mentioned in the books. It's just the sea and the dreams and the rituals. So the black dog is not a suspect anymore. There's no problems with leading through the sort of train of thought and logic that would bring them to his door naturally through the fact that they're all reading his book. They can talk to his agent and set up that interview. Or you can have the neighbour herself die and become the next crime scene, and therefore leading to Haynes himself being a witness to the drowning, perhaps even found the body, having the dog licking at the corpse as the investigators talk to Haynes. Treat the dog as a dog and have it interact with neighbour, whether you've chosen the route that's set out in the scenario itself or the alternative route of the investigation of the drowned fans. It has to be very, very subtle. The only things that should throw suspicion on the dog is when they enter Andy's house, there should be a lack of bowls for food and water, a lack of dog beds, lack of dog hair, or any canine paraphernalia at all in the abode. This should clue them in that this either isn't his dog or is not entirely on the level. If asked about it, Haynes should think they're referring to his depression, which he will indeed refer to as his black dog, causing double confusion or double meaning when the investigators are talking to him. This is entirely meant and is reasonably clever. The bulk of the scenario is placed around Haynes and his beach house and the immediate area. There is a back and forth between Haynes and the black dog here as the PCs wander the area and encounter both of them, and even the neighbour, should you choose the standard opening for this scenario. You have to sell all of these emotional ties quite well. The dog has to be really likable and memorable. The connection with Haynes has to be completely dead because he cannot see the dog, and it generally isn't available when he's around. Haynes himself has to be likable and has to connect with the players on an emotional level for this to really hit home that he is a victim too, rather than someone who's actively trying to cause suffering. I would have him on the beach walking as if he was walking the dog, spending a lot of time down there watching the waves and talking about the serene beauty in the sea. This ties into the dreams in the books and puts the players heavily focused on that ocean rather than the dog. And it also gives them ample opportunity to root around in his house should they break in or have access to it. There they can find some mythos texts which will explain some of the mythos, but not enough to warrant all the truths that can be found within it. And there's also a text on Snarly Yow, which the large dog is meant to be based on. This is an old myth from the 1800s, I think, which is about a black dog in the woods. It's not really elaborated on. You'd have to do your own research if you want to expand on it again. Another thing for the GMs to do. But once you've sold them connections and you've had them talk to Haynes, the real problems start to appear with this act or scene. You've got a lot of improv to do with Haynes, a lot of bullshit to spin about his life, his book, his depression, his ex-wife, his agent, all his problems, his fans, depending on where the PCs wish to go with the conversation. He's meant to be willing to talk about most of it, but shut down when he thinks they're being mocking about his depression, which he does indeed call his black dog. This is a reference back to Churchill, who referred to his depression as a black dog as well. That's just a nice little fact that the scenario gives you. But there's very little to actually do here if you aren't keen on improv, and it can end very fast if the PCs just go, that dog's a bit weird, and they do something out of the blue to prove it. The dog will defend Haynes, for example. It will defend itself, and even if it's killed, it will come back again, which can be interesting. Now, the major problem, the dreams. This scenario suffers the same issues as Servant of the Lake and several other scenarios I've read that have the players dream or need the players to dream to continue an aspect of the story as a reveal. The PCs are expected to turn up at Haynes, go away again, spend some time in a hotel, and then come back the next day. This can happen if Haynes kicks them out, I suppose, but it doesn't really feel natural, and without the expansion of the investigation to eat up that day, so perhaps they arrive at Haynes' house late, there's no way in hell the PCs will sleep. there's just not enough material to eat up the whole day, which will feel natural. To make time pass in an RPG, you have to do several small things in succession, which will involve a travel time, a small thing happen, a travel time, a small thing happen. If you think back to The Haunting, all these small little places around Boston are a small nuggets of time which passes, which will represent part of the day, and the players can look back on it and see where they spent that time, and it makes sense, and they'll accept it. They'll eat that lie. If you just say it is nighttime now, you have to leave, or yawn, you're tired, go to sleep. 1, they'll know something's up. 2, they will be annoyed that you're railroading them. And 3, they'll probably argue with you or come back with something that they want to do instead. If you choose do the investigation of the drownings of the fans of Haynes, you could have the PCs stake out the house first on orders from the police sergeant or the head investigator or detective. That is a possibility. Rather than going in guns blazing, they can observe, having them fall asleep in the stakeout car, and that could be an opener into the dreams if you can wangle it. But other than that, and the Haynes turning them away, there's not a lot of ways to get them to have this dream sequence. The dream sequence themselves will take the player and they'll sleepwalk down to the shore, just like Servants of the Lake. They'll be serene and peaceful and be led into the waves by the dog to be drowned. This is quite a nice climax to the story. It's a good end to the fight with the black dog, and the reveal that the black dog isn't what it's supposed to be. And without this dream, I feel the scenario lacks a lot. So it is kind of crucial you manage to fit this in somewhere. And to do so naturally is a little bit of a struggle. You could play the dream as a waking dream while they're talking to Haynes on the beach. He could elaborate on some of the serenity he feels, and that would pass on to the PCs as they walk along talking to him on the sandy shores. The dog perhaps nudging them with his nose at their hand and asking for the ball to be thrown into the waves, and then them finding themselves have walked into the waves some way to the shock of the other investigators. That's probably one of the easier ways to add this scene in. Once the black dog is revealed to be a mythos entity, it will have to be dealt with, and the PCs will have to convince Haynes that it is indeed real, as it's been avoiding him and he doesn't see it for what it is. To do so is quite difficult, and he'll barricade himself in the room and phone police on the investigators if they try anything violent. However, killing him is a solution to this scenario. Trying to kill the dog, however, is not a good idea, as it will come back again and again if it is killed, should you choose so, unless Nyarlathotep chooses to give up Haynes and glom onto one of the PCs instead. This is one of the better aspects of this scenario. Having the Nyarlathotep avatar form a symbiotic relationship with a PC as they sink into depression and madness is a very good personal story, and something you can really play on other scenarios should they choose to use the same PC in other places. But with all that said, I feel that overall the scenario is okay. You'd have to be very attached to the concept of the story and be willing to put a lot of time and effort into expanding it. It does have a lot of good ideas, and it is fertile for anyone who wishes to do that. But it's not a pick up and play like some of the other scenarios in the book, which managed to do more with the 4 pages. I would say if you're looking to play this, I would watch In the Mouth of Madness for ideas of how the fans could react and what you could find at the the house, where the film is quite over the top and Sutter Kane is quite mad and into it. There are still some aspects I think you can pull and tone down to fit this scenario quite well. So have a watch of that a couple of times and perhaps look at getting some handouts. There's no handouts, there's no pictures, there's a very low res map. It is adequate for what it is, but I would want more. And it's okay. Again, it goes into the category of how much effort you want to put into running this scenario, where something like separation anxiety, the first scenario in the book, is far more pick up and play than this. And with that, that's probably my final thoughts. So I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and I'll see you again for another one sometime soon. Cheers.
His head topples to the floor, expressionless. You fall to your knees and catch your breath. You're finally safe.